you a believer in good? Do you love it when the good guy wins in the end? Then Charity Matters is just the place for you, where modern day heroes overcome incredible obstacles to save the day with their amazing work. Welcome to Season 5 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing the helpers for over a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to be sharing these inspiring conversations with our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. We're so excited today to have nonprofit founder Angela Patton, founder of Girls for a Change, join us and share her remarkable journey and inspirational story of empowering the next generation of young women. You're not going to want to miss it. We are so excited to have Angela Patton here with us today with the organization Girls for a Change. Welcome, Angela. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me today.
We are so excited to learn about what the great work that you are doing. So why don't we just dive right in, and why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what Girls for a Change does?
Girls for a Change is a nonprofit organization based in Richmond, Virginia, and we prepare Black girls for the world and the world for Black girls. Really, that just means that we visualize a world where Black girls are seen, heard, and celebrated, and we are always working toward affirming Black girls and making sure that we stand in the gaps that they face as early as third grade until their secondary years in academic, and also sometimes their secondary years in their careers. Because what we tend to find out is that our girls start with us young, but as they grow into womanhood, those doors still tend to slam in their face because of their color, because they're right. Black young women. And right. So again, we close those gaps that they face by providing opportunities, programs, services, as well as social change advocacy work.
I think that's fantastic. So I'm always curious, like, people don't wake up and start a nonprofit. Everything starts with like a seed and an idea, but I'm always kind of curious about people like you, Angela, like where, like your family, was your family really philanthropic? Were they involved in their community? What were like the roots of this before we get into really like how you started it? But talk to me about like being a child, and what did you have examples of people that were making a difference in your life? What did that look like?
Well, I have none of those stories, but I've heard many of those. My story mainly was working for another nonprofit and really enjoyed my work, but I consistently saw that girls were not fully participating, or they didn't feel like they could. They were uncomfortable using their voice. And although I didn't know how to start a nonprofit, I knew
nobody does. Nobody ever does.
Right. I knew how to do programs. So I decided that I was going to use my vacation time from the nonprofit organization I was working with and just do this small 2-week camp for girls. And I just because I was like, I want to teach them how to work in the garden. I want to teach them Tai Chi. I want them to go play sports. I wanted it to be like their time and their sacred space. And right. I just, called up a friend. Can I use your house? Because she had like what they call Airbnb.
Right.
But it was a bed and breakfast. And then I had a friend who worked at another location down the street from the nonprofit I worked with, and they always had vans there. So I was like, can we borrow the van? I asked the church to like do a fish fry to help me raise money so I can buy supplies. I had no idea like what I was doing, but I knew something had to be done because I could also hear community, having conversations about what Black girls were doing and not doing. Right. And it was always negative. And I wanted to at that point, like tell them that that wasn't true. They just didn't have opportunity. So I did this first year of a 2-week camp, and a councilwoman that was not a councilwoman at that time, but was a nonprofit leader in the community, said, Angela, you're doing nonprofit work. And she was like, you should apply.
You're like, no, this is my vacation. This is just my vacation.
Yes. And she told me how to apply for my 501c3 and how to get a board. And she walked me through a journey that was very scary. But I knew that if I really wanted to make true impact, that although I was a community leader who, was in the roots with my community, that I was the best one to do this work, because those who are already at the bottom of usually the ones who can help themselves the most get to the top, because we know what we need. I still had to lean into this new way of doing business and open up my mind, and understood that being a program manager was different from being a CEO, or different
yes,
from
it
being
is.
a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And so I leaned into it, and that's how I kind of got started.
So I want to go back, because when you have this idea to just start a camp and to use your vacation for a couple-week little project, were these opportunities that you'd wish you'd had as a child that you didn't have? Were these, when you're saying, okay, I want to do Tai Chi and I want to garden, were these, you had this epiphany to do this, to give your vacation, which, by the way, is not normal. And by the way, nonprofit founders, this is why I interview nonprofit founders, because we are not a normal lot. None of us are. I am also a nonprofit founder, and none of us are normal. There's something a little bit off with us, but a little bit fantastic and wonderful as well, right? Yes. So when you're giving your vacation and you're thinking, I just want to do this camp, did you just think it was going to be a little temporary moment? You were just going to do this for just a one-time thing?
Yes, I did. I thought it was a one and done, to answer that question. And then the other question to what did I want this when I was a little girl?
Right.
What tend to, I guess, resonate with me is that I did have some of that when I was a little girl, because I was in Girl Scouts. My mother, kept me involved in, programs at our church. I was always starting a club at school. So I had these things in me, but did not realize what they were. And so it wasn't hard to say I wanted to do something. It just, I wasn't really, educated about how to get something that wasn't a club, that something was that's really legal, paperwork around working with people's children. But I'll be honest with you, once I got into it, I realized that the girls did not just need exposure or access to what I thought they needed or I experienced myself. They opened my mind to a whole new world. And I started to work really by listening to the girls about what was happening in their own communities and with their own lived experiences, and build it out from there. So when you said, did I think it was going to be 2 weeks? Absolutely. But once I got in it, I was like, oh my God, I need to do this more than 2 weeks. I thought that I was going to save the world with my little 2-week camp, and realized that it was so much more that needed to be poured into the girls, myself, and whatever this organization was that I was going to name later, because I really didn't have a name for it when I first started. So that was kind of like my journey into I think that I got an idea that's going to save the world.
But I have to say, everyone, and I've interviewed hundreds of people for the past decade, nonprofit founders, not one of us thought, not one of us knew what we were doing. Not one of us had a roadmap. We have no idea. Most people usually think something happened to them and they want to pay it forward, and they don't want something to happen to the next person. And they think, if I can just help a couple people, just a couple, then we'll be good. And I'm going to just pay this forward. But what happens is you help a couple people, and then you need to help a couple more. And then all of a sudden you're setting goals, and then you're applying for a 501c3. And the next thing you know, you have a business that relies on the kindness of others, which is a very hard business model. And you're an entrepreneur, and there's challenges coming at you right and left. And you're like, wait, I was just going to do a 2-week little something. And that's just how it goes for 1.6 million of us in the United States that have started these organizations. And it's just fascinating to me. So talk to me about some of the challenges in the early days. I mean, again, I think there is now a book called Nonprofit for Dummies, but no one that I've ever talked to has read it. So I don't know. I didn't read it. It wasn't out when I started mine in 2002, 2003. But what were some of the challenges, the early challenges, as you're figuring out this new landscape? You had a background in nonprofit, you had a background in programs, so you have a big advantage there. But what were some of the challenges?
Well, one of the challenges was being what our young people are fighting for so tirelessly today is I was young. That's
a good thing.
My nonprofit organization will be 20 years next year, 20 years old. So I was a much younger woman. So people don't believe in you when you're young. We have some people who don't think you know anything, and that you're, causing a problem because it's enough already happening in the community. But one thing about startups, whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit, we're always solving problems. I actually don't like that I have to do the work that I'm called to do all the time, because it is challenging, not only being young then, but also being a Black woman, saying that I am intentional about supporting and advancing Black girls.
Right.
That was offensive. That was a troublemaker in the South, especially in Virginia.
20 years ago.
Yes.
It's a different day. Today's a very different day than it was 20 years ago.
Yes, it's a different day, but still a challenging day, which I'm sure that question will come up later. But what I would say is that, I had to deal with the intersectionality of that, right?
Right.
You're young, you're Black, and a woman, right? And then they tap it off that you don't know what it means to run a business, definitely a nonprofit, and you also don't have access to people with money. So you cannot sustain this nonprofit. And the way that we're going to make sure that you don't, where the other challenge comes in, is creating barriers for me when it was an opportunity to raise money. They would always move the needle, right? Even after you continue to catch up, it was like, I got to start over again, or that's not good enough, or we're not doing that anymore now, Angela.
Right.
So those were always the challenges that would have made me throw in the towel. There comes challenges dealing with the community that you want to partner with as well, right? Like the families or children who don't kind of get your why. But that is what actually kept me going, is that they didn't even understand that even if you don't probably think you want to be in a girl program, there are people out here that don't want you to be in a girl program, is the reason why you should be. Right. Two different challenges. And so, but because of that challenge with the families, sometimes, made me wake up every day with strength to continue to fight the challenges of the people who did not see their worth.
Well, and I think that it makes so much sense to me. I think so much of what we do that people don't realize, when you're starting a business, but especially a nonprofit, you're creating community. And you're a torch, you're a beacon of light in a community, and you're going in there and you're trying to light the place up. You are trying to light everybody on fire and say, come with me, the light is this way, this is what we're doing. And there are people that just don't always look at you like, what are you doing over there with that torch? You're like, come over, stand here in the dark with me, because this is where we've always been standing and we don't need that light shining over here. And it's fascinating, kind of the psychology that you don't realize it until it's in the rearview mirror. But when you're in it and you're trying to gather people and say, come on, let's do this. There are challenges innately in that, which I think is interesting that you point out. But my question, and you mentioned this a little bit about what fuels you more when they tell you that you can't, you want to kind of do a little bit more. I think we all have lives. I mean, everyone's busy, but when you are working for a regular company and you're making something and you're done at the end of the day with you're making your pencils or your widgets, you can go to bed at night like I made 10 widgets. When you have humanity and people you care about, in your case, young girls who are relying on you, who are on your shoulders, who you think about 24/7 because they're your why, they are your everything. When we go to bed at night as nonprofit founders, we feel the weight of those people on us and the responsibility of trying to care for as many people as we can. That's our job. And then in addition, we still have to do our laundry. We still have our lives. We still have to go to the grocery store. And there are days I always say that the bucket is heavy because you're carrying people that need you. And some days you just think, I can't even pick up my own laundry, let alone pick up another person. So what fuels you in those moments to keep going? And in the past 20 years, I've got to gather there's been more than a couple of those moments.
Yes. Well, family for me, I've been very fortunate. And I share this with other nonprofit leaders that I have coached in the past, is that you got to find your village. Because in order for me to be able to go out and pay it forward, I have to take care of myself. So I'm going to definitely make sure I have a hair and nail appointment, go to the gym, eat healthy, drink my water. These are the things that I know that I also need to fuel my body with in order to be able to bring a community along with me. I have to make sure I am healthy, mind, body, spirit first, which includes who is my village, who are the people who know when I may need to call them to talk about what's going on with the nonprofit and how they can support me. And also who are my people when I was like, do not say girls for a change at all today, right? There are people who have to understand what your needs are. And so my family that I live with, right? My family who raised me and my family that I have, allowed to be in my space, which is, friends that become your family, right? And so that holds dear to me. And I, my camp that I started with is named Camp Diva, and it's actually named after one of my friend's daughters, who passed away tragically through the use of a firearm in a relative's home. And so even that keeps me strong, right? Because the goal is to make sure that all these girls understand that they're divas too. And this is how we're going to nurture the potential within them. And that particular young girl diva only had 5 years on this planet, but for over 20 years, she has been able to provide triumph. And those who have also possibly encounter tragedy, but they have the privilege to wake up and walk through that tragedy and create a new pathway. And so those are the things that I kind of pull from my fruit tree, right? That keeps me, alive, because I feed myself with that. Almost on a daily basis, I'm reminding myself of my why and reintroducing myself to my why, and reminding myself as well, or acknowledging, I would say, that I have great people beside me when I feel weary. And I'm so fortunate. And that's why I can continue to show up for girls the way that I do every day.
I love that. And what a perfect role model for all of these girls. I run a youth leadership organization nonprofit as my day job, and we work with thousands of kids and teaching leadership skills. And I sometimes I think about the work and the kids, but I don't always think about my example for them. Right. And I don't always think about, of course I do all those things because we have to put the mask on ourselves first. I do take care of myself, and I do make those things a priority, but I don't think I think about it. And when I hear you, I think, I need to think about that and think about reminding yourself of your why, because that's what the girls and the kids look to and see that and want to be. And our organization that we run, so much of it is, and sounds like yours as well, is peer-to-peer mentoring. Our college kids teach our high school kids, and our high school kids teach our middle school kids. And so we only have a staff of 3, but we serve 3,000 kids a year because they're mentoring each other.
Right.
And it's that trickle down theory of our why that goes all the way through all of these, in your case, girls. Yes. And I think that it's so important. So talk to me, in 20 years, I know success, and I hate the word impact, because when we write grants, they want to know our impact and our numbers and how many people we served and how many volunteer hours and yada, yada. I mean, I know it's important and I know it has a role. But I also think you can't, in our situation, when people ask me, how do I measure leadership? Well, it's impossible to measure that. When you look at a girl that's come through your program and come all the way through, how do you measure that end result of this confident, amazing girl? Impact is not big enough word for the work that we do. So how would you describe your impact? It could be a story, it could be numbers, it could be whatever. What do you think your real impact is, not in a grant application?
I say when the girls discover who they are, right? When they come back to us and say, I am happy with these decisions. I have discovered who I am, and I have clarity. And I say that because I too walk down that path of being a Black girl in America. And I am so clear about the fact that clarity is the key for us. So when I have girls find themselves to the point, it doesn't matter what's kind of going on in all of these distractions that are purposefully put in Black women's way. And when my girls have all of the skills, the strength, the compassion, the awareness to block all of that foolishness, and they come and just share their story with me, is how I evaluate it. And then I'm like, she got it. She got it, because there is no curriculum.
Right.
There is no school. There is no field trip. Right. There is no particular lunch that makes someone just say, I got it now. It's their own lived experiences and how much they take in. And when they truly make the decision that this is going to be what gives them joy. Because all I can do is give them access and exposure and opportunity, all those other words that make us put in these grant proposals. But at the end of the day, it is up to her to say her yes and her no. And that means she is clear. And when you say that, what a role model that I can be to the girls, that is it. When I even share with them how I started the organization, why I started, my story, my journey, one of the things that I'm clear about saying to them is that I'm clear about why I'm here with you all. I'm not a person who applied for a job. I'm not a person who's waiting to do something else, and this is just to get me by. I received a calling, and I am walking through that. And one day you're going to receive that calling too. That doesn't mean it may be a nonprofit. That doesn't mean it may be an athlete. It's whatever that is for you, and you are happy and joyous in that. And no one can say or do anything different that make you change that.
Right.
And if you do change it, it's because, once again, that's what gave you joy. It's not because of what Sister Angela said.
Right.
But I'm going to give you all the opportunities to figure it out for yourself. That is when I know my girls are true leaders.
Yeah. And I think that clarity is a word that we don't use enough, because how do you know where you're going if you aren't clear on where that is and what you want and figuring that out? And it's a process, right? It's a process. It isn't an instant, snap of the fingers and, oh, I'm going to do that. There's trying on a lot of shoes until you get a pair that fits. I mean, there's a lot that happens, and there's a process. And I see that obviously in the kids that we work with from year to year, and it's hard to measure it. I think it's hard. So you can't do this work, Angela, without being a dreamer, because you've already built this incredible organization. You've won all sorts of awards. You've gotten tons of recognition, and you're doing amazing work for these young women. So what's the next dream? If you could dream any dream, what does it look like? What is it?
It looks like for me is that 5 years ago, I decided that Girls for Change needed our own space to do our work on our own terms. And so we started leasing a space. There used to be an old 7-Eleven, and the gentleman who owned the building made it into like a daycare, and it became a licensed daycare. And I was able to take that over and make it a girl-centered facility, a cute little pad for the girls.
Right.
And when I was in the space, I just started to think about, like, again, what is the model for these girls? What do I want for these girls? And so and in 2019, I shared with the board that I really want to own the building. I said, we need to own this building. We should not be leasing. First, we got out of borrowing space or, love the fact that we could, love those partners, from Boys and Girls Clubs to a Y to schools and other community centers. Girls for Change has always been welcomed, and we are so grateful for that. But we couldn't do our work, college campuses. But we also know that comes with a set of barriers: the time, your space, funding, and what is the return on your investment. And I wanted to do that not only for the sustainability for Girls for Change, but I also wanted to make sure we were owning a space, because it's a model for our girls about owning property.
Owning something. Absolutely.
Owning something. And we know that when we do our research, because we work with Black girls, that we can see additional barriers, and home ownership is one of them. So if they can see that a Black woman owns the commercial real estate, and I can help them come along with me as we are signing contracts and figuring it out, it'll be a great example that they can do it too. So we purchased the building, so all excited about it. And then my dreams became just bigger, which every time I say, this is it, people like,
what's next, Angela? What do you got?
We need to knock this building down and build a whole new building, because we now own the property. And so our dream is, thank you. Our dream is that we raise this $5 million that we need to raise in the next year, so that we can raise our roof, literally raise the roof, and build a whole new center with partners in our community, and also by co-creating, what does it look like, feel like, the purpose of it for our girls. And also, how do we invite our community in to truly live through and out our mission, which is prepare Black girls for the world and the world for Black girls, because we do a lot of work with preparing them. But how do we prepare our world is by inviting them into spaces with our girls, right? Making sure we are collaborating, sharing ideas, making sure that our girls are able to feel comfortable in spaces that they didn't know that were for them as well. And so we definitely see that it's more than a building, but my dream is to have the building to really, truly make the word you don't like, impact on our community about what we have the opportunity
I like
do.
it and I don't like it, but that is an impact. You understand
like it when it works.
I like it when it works. I don't like it when I'm filling out a grant report. That's when I don't like that word impact.
Exactly.
But that is impactful and that is beautiful. And as I said earlier, what our role is creating community. And you can't have community without place, without a physical place. That's how you create community. You break bread, you eat together, you celebrate, you bring in businesses and people who want to hire these girls and companies and all of that. That's how you create community. And I know that dream is going to be happening really, really soon. That is really exciting.
I need all that energy. Bring it to me.
So talk to me about some life lessons that you've learned on this journey. You've shared a lot of incredible lessons, and obviously you shared these lessons with the girls about your clarity and your why. But what do you think you've learned in almost 20 years since you started this?
So many. But one that comes to me today is I'm really excited about being able to pay it forward in the school, high school in particular, that I graduated from. I didn't have, what I would say the most rewarding or exciting school years. I was super excited when I was able to read the book and meet the author of Push Out by Dr. Monique Morris about Black girls in schools. And I realized that, oh my God, I was a Black girl that was pushed out. And I remembered when I was called to speak at the school that I graduated from in a small class. It was an entrepreneurship specialty center. I really hesitated. And I went into the building and I didn't even realize that I was having like a moment, more like a little anxiety. And I've had a TED talk and I've spoken on podcasts before. And I'm like, I'm not nervous about these children. What is going on? But it was kind of like my own experience there was kind of resonating with me.
Right.
And I wasn't in a really good space, but I knew I had a job to do. And so I went in and I spoke to the girls and I had an opportunity to ask them questions. And the children shared with me some of their experiences in the school. And it saddened me because it was many, many years later, about 15 years later, 20 some years later, 25 years later. And these experiences were the same.
Yeah.
And even though the school looked different, it still was some of the same stories. And I was just, blown away. Right. And so I ended up making sure that Girls for a Change had a presence in the school that I felt my heart racing that I went in, but I felt it was my responsibility. And I felt that I was put in that space purposefully.
Right.
And,
of course.
and intentionally, like, you need to go back. And so now I have won a grant to actually do work specifically in that school. And so I'm really excited about that experience. To me, was like, I could have easily walked away. I could have kept the those experiences that I felt that were a bunch of drama, unfairness, racism, sexism, all of that I could have held on to because of what happened to me. And I realized that I had the magic wand to kind of now be in a place where I can help create the change that is needed in that school for the next girl who's there, who look like me or who may not look like me. But because she's a young girl in that school, and as we know, systems are hard to break, right? Even when new people come with new ideas, when you talk about, this, changing what people are comfortable doing, it doesn't happen overnight or through a social media post.
No.
So it has to be people like myself that go in and say, this is action oriented. These experiential learning opportunities that have to be put in place, and not just posted on social media about what we mad about or what we need to do or what we should do. Now let's put some action behind these words. And so the question around what did I learn from that is go back and face your fears and understand that you can help make it easier and less challenging and create a new experience that's a lot more happier and joyous for someone else. And I've heard my girls say, thank you for making it not so hard for me. And I realized, wow, I only can do that because someone before me that I stand on the shoulders of made it easier for me to be able to walk into the same high school that my uncle was one of the first Black students to enter into doing segregation. And he was that first class. And so that school now gets me more excited about being there. And you know what's really, really crazy about being able to do this work in the school?
Tell me.
My daughter is in 9th grade. And I live still in that community, left that community, but now back. And she was a private school student. And she said, I want to go to public school and I want to apply for the specialist center that's for entrepreneurs. And now my daughter is
oh my God. Oh, I love that. I got the chills, Angela. That is a full circle moment.
Exactly. So now I'm even more so forced, right? Because I'm a parent there and a partner there. And an alumni there.
An alumni, right.
I'm all of these things there. So it's like I'm forced to be there. So it's like I put you in that school for a reason, because when you turn 30, we were like, you're going to go back and do some things. And so it's kind of like that was really powerful for me to know, like, my hands are forced now even more so, and I need to accept it and not run from it. That's what I learned.
And I think it's absolutely beautiful. There's so many levels of change in that story too, because the institution maybe didn't change, but you changed. And then you came back to help change the institution.
Yes.
And it's just like that circle is so beautiful. And I think that when we start down these paths and we start these organizations and we set out to help a person or 2 or 3 or 10 or give a 2-week camp, we just don't even realize the impact that we're going to have on our lives and how our lives are going to be impacted by it, and the full circle moments that bring us to this completion. And that story is a beautiful example. And I can't wait to hear what your daughter does with you.
Maybe she can be your next guest one day.
I would like that. I know that when I went back to my high school and I was a very proud, C+ student, and I gave the commencement speech, I thought, what am I doing here? I said, this speech is for all the C students. This speech is for all those girls with B minuses. You can still make a difference in the world. Just because you're not going to Stanford doesn't mean you're not a rock star. And I went to an all-girls school.
Absolutely.
And, I laughed when I was I'm like, you want me to give the speech? And I'd been a trustee, but I just thought, you almost kicked me out of the school 3 times for all sorts of different naughty things that I did. I think they were early signs of leadership personally, but but I think that it's really beautiful to hear these full circle stories, and really incredible to hear about your daughter as well. I think that's so exciting. So talk to me about how we can support Girls for a Change, how we can support you, follow you, Instagram, donate, help build that building, all those good things. Tell us how we can help, because lots of people are listening and they're really excited about what they're hearing.
Awesome. Well, I am happy to hear that they're excited, because I'm always excited to share. And so you can visit girlsforachange.org to learn more about all of our programs. Again, I said we start with girls as early as 3rd grade and work with them into their high school years. And also we have a strong alumni. So we're really excited about being able to stay the course with our girls. And one of the things that we always need is, people to think about, like, can I spare, $15, $20, my coffee, once a month, and give to Girls for a Change, so we can be a sustainable organization and really think about building our capacity and being able to support our families and our girls that we support wherever they may have gaps, and that they have no barriers or no costs that they need to worry about being in programs that only build their skills and prepare them for the world. And then we also have that amazing building fund that's happening. The name of our building fund that you can also find on girlsforachange.org is 1 million reasons to build. And what we are doing is we're looking for people to think about putting their name on our legacy flower wall about what is it that you want to share with our girls. By making a donation, you can put your message to our girls. So when they walk through this amazing new space, they are affirmed, they are empowered, they are loved, and they are nurtured at all times. And when they start to feel weary, and not feeling that someone remembers or knows their worth, when they step into the lobby, they know that we get them. So the way that you can support us is visiting our 1 million reasons to build on our website, and think about really creative ways you can give. We always are looking for volunteers. We always are looking for speakers in person and virtual to impact our girls' experiences, ask you questions, mentorships. If you name it, we got something for you to do at Girls for a Change. So thank you for allowing me to share this opportunity for you to prepare Black girls for the world and the world for Black girls.
Thank you, Angela. You are just joy in a bottle. You are so inspiring, and it's been such an absolute joy sharing your journey and learning about your incredible work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Follow us on Instagram.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I so enjoyed talking to Angela about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think her comment about facing your fears was so inspiring and true. To learn more about modern day heroes like Angela, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and for being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. And remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters. See you next time.